I'm going to bring on right now a special guest who I am so excited to introduce, Matt Berry. And, it's funny, Matt. I'm almost like saying Matt Berry from Sweethearts and Heroes, but you're not a staff member. Am I right?
No, I'm not. I'd love to be. As much as I do love my job, I would love to be on Tom's staff, but I am not. I am the principal of Peru High School in upstate Peru, New York.
And this is, you're a school that has been very, very active with Sweethearts and Heroes.
Yeah, they came by. I want to say 7 years ago now, through a sponsorship that one of our old counselors, Tom Bull, got through a Chevy dealership. And it was one of those things where we're like, well, we're going to have a assembly. And I was the middle school dean of students at the time and athletic director. And I told Tom I'd help out because he's a friend of mine, and met Tom and for the first time and had some quirky exchanges. I know that's been your same experience, JD. And we went down and they had this assembly that was absolutely amazing. Tears, laughter, seriousness, faculty and staff alike, middle school students, high school students, and that's where we were really sold. And then after that, if nobody wants to talk about this, and I playfully call it the other C word. Sorry if that's inappropriate for your show, but
not at all.
If I remember correctly, you're a guy who enjoys that kind of banter.
Yes, sir.
So the other C word, COVID, hit, and we were reeling with our kids. They were struggling, and I called Tom out of the blue, Murphy, and he and I just had this really good exchange. And I think we just kind of hit it off. And I said, "What are you doing?" And there was just this level of common understanding about humanity and dignity, and some really common backgrounds. I was never a professional athlete like he was, but athletics and dedication, loyalty. So we really hit it off, and he did a virtual assembly for our students. And I think he would admittedly say it wasn't as powerful. But I do remember he said, I'd like to come meet you in person again and sit down, now that I had evolved into the principal. And then from there, we just took our program to where it is now,
which is massive. And we're talking about a school that is how many students again, Matt?
We have 547 in the high school, and district-wide, they're just short of 2,000. Not a giant school, but it's also not what I would consider a small school either.
No, the thing is, and you and I both know this, that once you meet Tom, especially if you experience one of his assemblies with Sweethearts and Heroes, the guy is just infectious. He just brings about positivity and wears that right on his shirt sleeve. And the students, of course, I mean, the faculty definitely picks up on that, your administration, but the students feel that more than anything.
The students love him. Our people love him. He's just been such a backbone to what we've done because he believed in us. And I think that's the thing that I really appreciate about Tom is you will know where he stands, and he will never be rude to anybody. That's just not his style. But when he believes in you, and he believed in us, and he saw what we had as potential. And then he brought his other team members our way, Pat Fish, who spent for 2 years, monthly visits with us. We didn't have him this past year, and we just noticed how much we miss him. So we're actually working on trying to get him back into our school next year. So just the connection, I know Tom has visited tens of thousands of schools. He and Rick, who is another amazing person and part of their team. I know that, but I feel Tom to be part of our community. Our kids know him. They know who he is. They know that when they go down the hallway, they are safe, but they are going to have to interact with Tom. They just know that that's going to happen. And I think most people know that when they meet Tom is you are going to have an interaction, and you don't know what question he's going to ask you. and you're going to be put in a place to be a little bit vulnerable. And I think that in a good way. And that's what we are trying to teach our kids is there is such a fear right now among students to show vulnerability, to show, to really recognize their own dignity and others' dignity, and a drop of empathy, mental health, mix that in with the, and I hate to say it out loud, but mix that in with the gigantic increase in suicide rate in the last 20 years. We have a situation that we as school adults are responsible to deal with. And Tom has really paved the way for us here at Peru to have a plan beyond an assembly to address that problem.
I have asked this question before, even Carlotta Parentoni, who was on Waits River School principal, and I'll ask you the same thing. What do you say to schools anywhere who are unfamiliar with Sweethearts and Heroes?
I would say it would be the most unique experience you could bring to your school. It would be the most unique experience in the realm of social emotional learning, self-awareness, empathy, an emphasis on empathy, understanding how to empower students to help others. And I'm going to say this, and it might be controversial, JD, maybe not. I'm not on podcasts very often, so maybe I'm being a little bit careful. But
my man, you can get as controversial as it's called to air it out. You go.
Well, I'll tell you this: the kids will never bring a bullying problem to someone like me. Maybe time to time, but I find out when they come to someone like me, a principal, an associate principal, they almost 100% of the time say, "I don't want you to call them in your office. I don't want them to know it was me. I don't want you to tell my parents." As we know, those are impossibilities for me. And at the high school level, especially, they know that those are impossibilities for me. And therefore, so many of these things go unreported. And what Tom brings to the game, and what we have tried to do through systematic programming, through bully drills, through other programs such as our STEP program, which I can speak to briefly, we get our high school students, after being trained by Sweethearts and Heroes and going through curriculum, they go down and they run actual bully drills with elementary school students, being, hence the name Sweethearts and Heroes, being the hero, trying to get somebody out of the situation. And it's not like you should walk up to that person and fight them. That's not the message. It is walk up to the victim many times and say, "I need you to come with me. Why don't you come, let's go see Mr. Armstrong and work on our algebra," if they're in a situation that they're sad in, or just a sweetheart. You see somebody with their head down crying, don't leave them there. That's a wilted flower. That flower needs some water. That flower needs some attention. And even just saying, "Hey, I don't know you real well, but I can just go talk to your counselor for you and say you're in trouble. I can bring you to another space. How can I help you?" Even just doing that and getting an answer from that person in distress might be, "Oh, thank you, but I'm good," or just, "I just need to be left alone." At least they know someone cares about them. And that's what we're trying to infuse in our culture with our high school students, trying to affect change with our elementary students, but also amongst their high school peers.
Matt, we're living in a world, and you know this, where, man, there is so much stuff going on that we are almost wired, we are almost programmed in a way to, if it's not your problem, don't get involved. If you do get involved, it's going to be your problem, and you're going to get caught up in this web. It's best to look the other way. It sounds like you guys are doing the opposite of that at Peru High School.
We are trying. I'm not going to say on air here that we are perfect, that this is just completely foolproof and so on and so forth. If I had the recipe for what is completely foolproof about humanity, because that's who we deal with, right? We deal with humans.
Yeah.
And if I had that answer, I think I'd probably not be sitting in the chair that I am right now.
Sure.
And I don't have those answers, but I can tell you one thing that I believe personally, and I think we're trying to get this message out to our students. If you aren't part of the solution, you are part of the problem.
Yeah, wow. So well said, and what a great way to live your life and just to have that in the back of your mind. I mean, my little girl, and we had this chat yesterday where, you know, she just wants to be everyone's saving grace. She wants to be the hero every time. But there's some parameters, and I think Tom and all of Sweethearts and Heroes defines that very well, of protocol that you should go about, and it's not necessarily the same way that you or I did when we were in elementary school, being a hero, which was done a different. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But there's protocol. There's the right way to be that hero, and there's the wrong way.
Yeah, they're like, and maybe I'm a little bit cliche, but I try to hang myself on some of these words that I run through my head over and over again. It just kind of guides my behavior. You know, before I said, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And that just reminds me of, you know, I'm sorry, JD, I lost my thought. Could you?
Well, no, just that when you and I were young, not that
Yeah.
we aren't young, but we were the hero at the playground.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
we're in the gym, or when in the parking lot after high school, in a different kind of way, that wasn't necessarily super beneficial.
Yeah,
but now
you got me right back on track. You got me
man,
right back on track.
it's different now. It's different now. There's
It is.
protocol.
And I guess I'll just, you know, again, the cliche sayings is nothing extreme is sustainable. And you know what we probably did, and I'll probably talk to a lot of people out there who like this saying. I like this saying. Tom might call me a little bit of a generational narcissist, but the 90s kids are the kids I think you're talking about. Like the 90s kids.
And 80s too.
80s, yeah, absolutely. 70s, 60s, these generations, you know, I think of my father and some of the stories that he told me. Yeah, that was justice, so to speak, looked a little different. And I think what we found out as generation to generation passes on is that's kind of extreme behavior, and it's not really healthy, and it doesn't make the situation better. It only makes it worse.
Yeah.
It divides things. It divides people. And therefore, I think we've seen some of those extreme behaviors poke out of the 90s. If, you know, not to be too, I was a former history teacher, but not to be too historical. You see the extreme behaviors, maybe because of the extreme approach to trying to handle some things.
Sure. You know, the thing is, you not only have to have students know how to react, what the best way to respond and react to this, but also your administration. They've got to be well trained, and man, Tom does, and you do such a great job with that they're not reacting in a way that's exacerbating things.
It is such a hard thing. And, you know, I'm actually happy that you brought up that question, because it is a daily struggle. I can probably relate. This comment will probably resonate with many of the principals and associate principals out there, or people who have to make a decision. You have a code of conduct in your school. You know, at least in New York State, that's what we are charged with, have to have. You have a code of conduct in your school. Everybody who puts their feet on your campus are subject to that code of conduct. Well, that code of conduct does say things such as, you know, for example, and this isn't word for word, but we can talk about this. So if you're caught with a vape at Peru, you get 1 day of ISS as per the book. So that's a nicotine vape. That's not you know, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but that's not a THC vape. That's a nicotine vape. You automatically get 1 day of ISS, which is in-school suspension for us. And you're in a room for the day, and your teachers bring you your work, and you get a couple bathroom passes, and that's in our code of conduct. But what people don't know is the conversation that I have with that student beforehand about, you know, maybe catching that student in my school and having the conversation with how they're surrounded by their own family by addiction, and that this is the thing that they've learned, and this was given to them maybe by an uncle at 8 years old.
Sure.
Who's now this student at 14.
Sure.
Is completely addicted.
Right.
And that 1 day of in-school suspension is not going to knock the addiction away from this student. We do have other policies in our code of conduct. I'm glad to say that there's an automatic referral to a prevention counselor in our code of conduct. Therefore, it's what the student is expected to do. But I use that example because it is so hard sometimes when you see there might be an egregious break of your code of conduct or just egregious behavior. You are having a conversation with the student. You see the remorse. You see the devastation. You're talking with the family. This is going to destroy the family. This might even be the mistake that a high school student made that puts them in a different house. So it is about the tightest rope to walk, upholding what your community basically votes on. You know, they voted in New York State anyway. You vote on the Board of Education to make fiscal decisions and policy decisions for the community. And when they adopt the code of conduct, that's what the expectations of the administrators are. And that code of conduct, like any code of conduct, does not take in the narratives that are out there that really exist. And boy, it's heavy. It's heavy, and it's such a hard thing. I'm really glad you brought that question up.
Matthew Berry is the principal of Peru High School. He is with us, our guest on a Wednesday morning. This is when we talk about sweethearts and heroes every single Wednesday. Matt is, again, the principal of Peru High School, which has been very actively connected and involved with Sweethearts and Heroes now for how many years, Matt?
I think we're going on 7.
Okay.
6 and change.
I got to tell you, man, when I was just over there a couple of weeks ago, I was struck by a lot of things in a positive way. First of all, I haven't stepped foot in high school in a long time. During school hours and seeing all the kids and oh my wow, just the technology and everything was just amazing. But the positivity in the hallways, just in the short time that I was there, coming in from the outside and knowing that, you know, you guys aren't walking around saying, hey, we've got an outsider coming in, everyone on their best behavior. But the camaraderie among the students and respect was very different from my high school. The students that I talked with, and I don't know, those probably maybe 15-ish, 10 or 15, man, did they have nothing but great things to say about you? Words like, he's the real deal. We love him. We respect him. He doesn't fool around. Your students really speak quite highly of you, Matt. Even with regard to, and I was having some fun with them a little bit about the whole cell phone thing, which I want you to tell us about, because please tell us about the whole cell phone thing.
Okay.
But so, they love you. They love you, though, Matt.
Well, that honestly, I got goosebumps because of that. And I, you know, to be honest with you, you might have talked to the right 15 kids, because I'm sure there's, just like anywhere else. And,
sure.
And, you know, there's 15 kids who would probably like to see me go elsewhere.
Yes.
However, you know, one thing that, you know, I'm very happy, and I will say this with trying to be as humble as possible. You're probably the 5th, 6th, or 7th guest that we've had to Peru High School who said the exact same thing.
Wow.
Loudon, who works for Tom, said this. He said, "You guys must have coached these kids up." I'm like, be honest with you, I don't have time to coach kids up.
Yeah.
Of
course not.
We had a graphics designer who did some of those new graphics that you probably saw when you came into our school, who said, I had one of your students offer me lunch. So I'm very proud of that. And I'm glad that you brought it up. I do think it's part of, we don't emphasize anything but human dignity and empathy. We emphasize it. Do we all drop it sometimes? Yes, myself included. But that's our emphasis. We repeat it over and over again. And I have a great staff here who is polite. And I'll tell you, I try to be polite. And I know I have my moments, and I'm a principal. I have to have my moments. I have a little bark when I need to, I believe. I could be wrong. Maybe it's too much or whatever. But at the same time, I try to say hi to every student. I try to make their an acquaintance with them where I know more than just their name. Most I'm there. I got some work to do. However, I do think that our programming through Sweethearts and Heroes has been a big catalyst for that. So phones. New York State has put a bell-to-bell ban on cell phones in schools in New York State. I am in disagreement with many people on this, as I think it is a terrific move. Many other administrators are saying they want it to be a local decision and they will manage it locally and how we do those things, because we know our schools and our community. I disagree. I do. I flat out disagree with them. We did it for 2 weeks here, 2 weeks, a 2-week pilot at the end of the school year when it was our time where we did have some tests inserted here and there. So we didn't have, we probably got a 7 to 9 day trial on it. We had a few issues. When I say few, I mean two issues where students just were not going to give up their phone, and they couldn't make it through the day. However, and Tom has some video evidence of this, and I have some video evidence of this. He randomly went around and he interviewed students, and they expressed some frustration from time to time. But for the most part, the underlying issue is I feel better. I don't have to check it. I'm not chasing it. I'm not worried about, what's going on social media. I'm not worried about missing something. I'm not worried about catching up with the Joneses. I'm not making this up. And people out there, you can say he's not telling the truth. I am telling the truth. I got video evidence. I will also tell you that I don't, and here's another, maybe a little bit of controversial one. I don't think the problem lies with the kids. The problem lies with the parents who want to speak to their kids all day long. That's part of the problem.
Wow. That's a bold statement, Matt.
I'll say it in any arena.
Wow. I happen to agree with you, but it is a sticky subject, and something that not everyone is going to agree on. But the bottom line is, as if we don't have enough distractions going on during our day at school. School is the place we're supposed to be learning. We're supposed to be learning a lot of stuff, not just in the classroom, but we're supposed to be engaging with the administration, with the staff, with other students, which is all part of the learning process. I don't know about you, but I mean, so many of us could spend an entire day easily wasted 8, 9, 10 hours looking at our phones. I mean, there's always going to be something on that phone that is going to be asking for your attention. Always.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't live in a glass house. I scroll through it too. The only reason I'm on Instagram is to follow my daughters and their basketball endeavors. And because a lot of things that they do are posted. Actually, Vermont-based team, Lone Wolf Athletics, I actually coach for, my daughters play for. They're amazing for those basketball people out there. That's the only reason I have Instagram, and I don't have Facebook. But I do understand the utility of social media. My wife probably hates this, but I troll her social media because I don't have it, but I also want to be in tune. So therein lies the absolute issue, that we have, is even something I don't have, I want to look at it. It's like when we were probably coming up and your neighbor got the PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 1, you wanted to go over there and play it. It's very similar. It's very similar, but I'll say this about the phones, and I am a sports guy. I've done a lot of coaching. However, I think these rules lie, not so much rules, but guidelines lie tried and true for all aspects of life, that the fundamentals drive the biggest success, the fundamentals of basketball, the fundamentals of playing the flute, the fundamentals of being a nurse, the fundamentals of education. And I think when this phone is out of our hands, it allows us to take a trip back to the fundamentals, like going to a restaurant with your family, possibly, or friends even, and not being locked in on a phone, or having one kid locked in on a phone, three others talk, or mom and dad talk, or mom and dad are on the phone. For me, when we grew up, and again, this is soapbox high horse stuff, but when I grew up, if I was going to go out to dinner with my family, we were going to talk. I didn't have the option of a phone. I totally understand that. But that's a time where you engage. And I think you mentioned that when you were at our school, JD, that and to me, that's the version of the layup. That's the version of the fundamental that we need to get back to.
Tom wants me to ask you about the whiteboard behind you.
I was slacking a little bit this year, but this was starting in the school year of 23-24. This was the number of circles that I engaged in with either students or faculty. And I just kept track of it because Pat Fish was here one day and he talked about being in 700. I remember the number, and this is what made me do it. 700. I think it was 743 circles at the particular point in the year. And I'm like, well, I'm going to start keeping track. So I have, in my 24-25 circles, you can see it even got erased a little bit because that's where my shoulder is on my chair. I didn't make my 100, and I'm not ashamed to say that. But I'm going to go back at it, and we're going to get my one. So that's my goal: 100 circles per school year. And I do start July 1st for, just full disclosure. So next week, I will be restarting my circle count for 25-26, and I'm hoping to get to 100. I did slack this year. And I'm coming back. I'm coming back with a vengeance.
Listen, man, for folks that are maybe just tuning in the first time on a Wednesday, or they're not familiar with Sweethearts and Heroes, or they've never caught one of our episodes in the past about Circle. This is an ancient, I don't want to say ritual. What's the word? It's just an ancient...
An ancient common practice of humanity.
Yes, of getting people together in a circle so we can all see each other's face and going around the circle and communicating, whether it's in an open-ended question, idea sharing, whatever it may be. And I was part of that experience for the first time, my first circle experience at Peru High School a couple of weeks ago with your students and Tom. And it was amazing on so many different levels. Right away, Tom was like, "What'd you think?" And I was like, extremely difficult for me to not interrupt, not interject something, follow-up questions, which that's what I do for a living. That's who I am. I'm just a curious guy, intrinsically. And I was just like, man, I need to find out more. I need some follow-up here. And Tom's just got the... And that was one of the hardest parts for me, but to be forced to listen. And by the time we've gone around the full circle, I had forgotten all my follow-up questions that I had for that guy at the beginning. But but what an impact to listen to people in a circle who are free to speak without any parameters and free to speak for basically as long as they want to. And there were some students who had some pretty long pauses in there where there was maybe some hesitation. But to sit and listen to that was incredible. And there was laughter, and there were tears, all within probably an hour's time, Matt.
Yeah, it's amazing. I had a similar experience, JD. I was the old ball coach who, here I am. I'm here to drill, and I coach basketball. I teach social studies, and full disclosure, I said them in that order for a reason, and I hate to say it out loud, but it was the truth. I sat in my first circle because a friend of mine said, "You got to try this." And ever since that day, when I also had laughter, tears, and total seriousness and everything in between in about an hour, I also wasn't a believer, and it said, we need to bring this to our students. I can't imagine, being in high school when I was, being willing to do that.
Yeah. Same here.
Our kids love it. Our kids, for the most part. Now, it's not for all students because they're not there yet. And maybe it is for all students because there's so much that I could say about this, but we talked about fundamentals and we talked about an ancient practice. Well, there you go. It's a fundamental. And what a way to balance the power of a space.
Yeah. Right.
Because some students have more power than others. They may know it, they may not. But they do. It's just reality. And this is a way to balance that power, to take in all perspectives, to force people to listen. And I don't want to use the word force, but to allow them to listen, allow their brain that freedom to listen. It's kind of liberating.
Yeah. And frankly, and let's just be real blunt here. Frankly, I think more of us need to practice, and maybe even at home with our families and or our spouses. Wow.
If my spouse was on here.
Sorry, I had to say that, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I need to make sure I get my 100 so I can continue to keep that perspective.
My wife is always after me about listening, and maybe I should have a shirt that says, "Yeah, but." But anyway, 547 students at Peru High School. That is remarkable, and to think that your seniors designed, constructed, with the help of Sweethearts and Heroes, a program called Community Days, where they're designing a fun, full day that is filled with obstacle courses and all kinds of team building events, that they're designing this and putting this together for younger students, for the elementary school. Unbelievable, Matt.
Yeah, it was. It came out of the summit, attached to Sweethearts and Heroes, who ran a leadership. They called it the summit. It was a leadership, what I would call leadership workshop. However, we had schools from around New York State, and I believe there was one school from Vermont there. And we had about 20 students from each school come together. That's where the training started. When I talk about a powerful 3 days, when I have my students saying to me, I wish it was longer. I saw things in those 3 days out of students that I never thought I would see as a principal. Addressing 150 students about some really traumatic events in their life, address in front of a campfire, addressing 150 students, sharing their stories. And not for attention, but really a level of perspective and sharing. And That was just one piece of that event, plus the actual specific training that Tom and Rick and his entire team put forth, Pat. It was just, that's where it started back in September. And then our students who were at the summit went to Tom and said, we have an idea. And that's where the fish podcast came out of.
Yeah.
But then we have this whole continuing work on the community day. And I think a lot of people were nervous. And I'll tell you about a little experience. I went over to the elementary school and I could see some teachers who were concerned because they have an elementary school teacher has a special job. And that's, 30 people she has to care for, 20 to 30 people that she or he has to care for regularly. And there are so many more concerns than just 2 + 2.
Yeah.
And I went in with our students and I said to them, and to try to bring some ease before the event, I'm very confident when I say this to you all, my students are trained for this.
Yeah.
And that came out of the class, out of some great work by some amazing teachers here at Peru, Adam Carter, Anna Stitt, Michelle Palhemus, Jen Gay, who works for Sweethearts and Heroes now, but is a former teacher of ours and coming back to our team. Mr. Pete McCormick, Carrie Pearson. I know I'm probably forgetting somebody and I don't want to. It's not intentional for all of these who are listening out there. But so these people came together with the students and did an amazing thing on that community day. And then, and here's the greatest part, we got a stack of letters from the 5th grade and a call from one of their teachers, Mr. Dupree, saying, this was the most fun we've ever had at school. We've had some teachers walk up to some of our student facilitators after the event, not knowing them, and saying, whatever you need, whether it's a letter of recommendation or a job recommendation, whatever you need, you have my name. That was amazing.
I'm almost jealous that something like this wasn't happening when I was in elementary school, Matt.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I look at a lot of things like, just because I live in education, the opportunities and the things that schools are doing for children right now really are amazing. It's not just Peru High School. It's schools in general. I think for the most part, by and large, on average, schools understand the need for these sorts of things. And especially the building. I'm so fortunate. I point this way because right up that road is our elementary school. I can walk to the elementary school in less than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Our school is the center of our community. So we have some advantages in that respect. We don't have a spread out school district across the road here and there. We're all right here. So we have to take advantage of that. We have to have our high school students involved with our younger students and this programming, the STEP program that came out of the summit.
Yeah.
Boy, I hit that out of the park.
Let's go there because I wanted to ask you about of course, I want to ask you about freshman orientation, but tell me more about the STEP program.
So the STEP program, a few of those students who went to the summit, the STEP program allowed some of our teams of 2 to go over to our elementary students and basically put on the presentation, a different version of the presentation that Tom and Rick do, about being a sweetheart, about being a hero, about interjecting into bullying. And so we had two students pair together and do these presentations in the 2nd grade. And it was great. It was really moving. Again, we have some video footage of it. That's amazing. I know Sweethearts and Heroes has that footage, and I can tell you, it moved the teachers, it moved the students. And now what I'm hoping happens is, again, the fundamentals. We can probably all name that. I heard Tom, on a podcast last week say we can probably all name the student that was picked on and bullied in high school. We can all name them, right? We can also name that person that we all looked up to and wanted to be like, who is just a few years older than us.
Sure.
And that's what we're trying to create, is a system that's out there that creates that. Mine was Ben Sabrin. I can tell you this day, he was about my size. We played all the same sports. We played all the same positions. He ended up being a good friend of mine, but he's a little bit older. But I wanted to be like Ben Sabrin.
Roger Getz, Here I am, 54 years old, and I remember that literally like it was yesterday. Isn't that amazing that this kind of stuff sticks with us forever, Matt?
Absolutely.
And I got to tell you, man, with all the amazing things that you guys are doing, to think that you got a staff member, John Mitchell, whose responsibility is to capture everything, not only so that we can go back and relive it in social media and on the web, and just for our eyes and ears only in the staff or in the school, but also for at times for the community to be able to see the impactful work that you guys are doing, and not just with Sweethearts and Heroes, beyond.
Yeah, we're so fortunate to have people like John Mitchell and a tech department like we have, and the willingness to go above and beyond. We have a podcast at Peru called the We Are Peru podcast. And, from time to time, we get different people who play different roles at the school on there, or Tom's been on there.
Yeah.
Just talking about, the work we're trying to do, because I will say this, that there's no more powerful thing in our society than the narrative. I think you can see this in the media. I think you can see it in not only the large scale media, but also social media. And then the narrative drives it. Unfortunately, you can't, as much as I'm a non-social media person, you can't sit back and not engage in it. And that's where the kind of opposing sides of the cell phone thing come in, is technology, what technology to use, when is it okay, and so on and so forth. But I will say, like, when we put our social media, the Fish podcast, the We Are Peru podcast, having you by JD, when we do those things, it's not to create a narrative, it's to tell what's going on. And I bring up the narrative because so many people might be disgruntled with the school and maybe some decisions they made or a bad experience. And we understand that more than they may think. But at the same time, we as an institution can't sit back and allow a narrative that's in place that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Amen. Wow. I want to ask you about back to Tom, back to Sweethearts and Heroes. I remember, Matt, the anxiety that I had leaving middle school and going into high school. Thank God I had an older brother who was kind of helping me along with encouragement. But I remember very well. This would have been 1984. What do you do with incoming students who, let's be honest, are seemingly, anyway, plucked from one reality and reborn into another reality very quickly, instantly? And that transition for so many can be so easy. So easy. They're excited. They're anxious for it. They look forward to it. They can't wait. And then there's others who are walking around maybe with a smile on their face, but so unsure of themselves, their role that they play. There's a constant learning curve here. You're your own planet inside of a high school. Pecking order, if you will, is kind of learned. This is something that can be unbelievably intimidating for kids coming out of middle school. How is Tom helping out with that?
You said so many things that have so many thoughts, but Tom has been instrumental in on those freshman orientation days, there's one day in our freshman orientation over the summer where we just simply tell the students, these are where the things are. These are the people who help you with the things. These are the places to go to eat the food. We do go through the basics and allow them, like a typical orientation.
Sure.
Day 2, though, is, we've had Tom there. We've had Pat Fish there. Day 2 is bully drills. And again, the key, the fundamental, that student mentor that's a little bit older than the students who are coming in, we connect them with them. They take a group. We allow them to do circle. They talk. And we tell our student mentors, you've got to be very careful about what you say. However, you can get a little bit real. They need to hear a little bit real. They need to hear when you show up to Mr. Barry's class, he's going to write you up. They need to hear those things. So we do circle, then we take them apart in those same groups, and they put together a bully drill skit. And then they come up in front of the stage and actually do it in front of their peers, and it's judged and by teachers. They give, and there's an award and a prize. It's really a cool thing. And it, again, showing the vulnerability, trying to be, even all the adults try to show some vulnerability at that time. And there's so many things going on there. And I'll say this, you had that anxiety about moving from middle school to high school. I had the same anxiety, but here you are running a show on the air in which you talk to, tens of thousands of people. So I do think there is something to be said for a healthy coping mechanism and a healthy dose of anxiety.
Do you have a favorite among the Sweethearts and Heroes staff? Please don't say Tom.
Well, Tom and I are buddies. Like we hit it off, but Pat's my man. Pat Fish has become part of our school culture. We want him here more. He's just amazing. And maybe for many different reasons, but those two have really changed my life and so many ways about how I think about things. And my perspective on parenting, my perspective on coaching, teaching. They just really have impacted me, and to have them around, it just changes the aura in the room, and they're both amazing. So yeah, I know. Please don't say Tom. I get it. Just makes his head bigger than it already is, but they're tied.
Man, I tell you, I hope that I can come back up to Peru sometime. I would love for my 10-year-old little girl to see and to meet some of your students up there, like Liam and all of the others. The level of maturity at 17 and 18 years old, just from what I witnessed, in perspective that they were able to verbalize. If I was half as mature at 17 and 18 as just those kids in that room that I met, every single one of them is geared for success in whatever it is that they decide they're going to do. Guaranteed.
I hope. I wish I was that mature when I was 30.
Yeah, right.
And I'm still working on it. And I think the thing to be said about that, first of all, you and your daughter are welcome at our school anytime. And I would also say that with our students, we got a great compliment from Kenzie Whitmarsh, who you also met, who was on your podcast. She said how this program gave her the confidence that she lacked in so many different things, such as articulating herself in front of other people.
Yeah. Wow. What's the deal now? As principal, you get, 2.5 months off to sit on a beach and think about absolutely nothing other than when your next beverage is coming and how much sunscreen you need to apply. Is that all you're going to be thinking about for the next 2.5 months?
Well, In New York, it's more like 2 months. And if I get a couple days to do that, I'm going to take advantage. However, I'll be at work on Monday.
So, what's the day in the life of Matthew Berry? I mean, what's a typical summer day? You're there all the time.
Yeah, but full disclosure, I'm going to work a lesser day in the summer. I am going to find the golf course. If I don't, my brain feels like it wants to pop off my shoulders. I will find time to make sure I exercise and do some of the things that I like. However, what a typical day looks like at work here is we meet with our counseling team, myself and my associate principal, Mr. Joe Batten. We meet with the counseling team, and we are mostly scheduling, planning calendars, and looking at programming at our high school, and how to make a schedule. We build the master schedule most days. It is a lot of work. It is a heavy lift, and we have another reason why it's a heavy lift is we have a pretty robust course catalog. We offer AP courses. We offer advanced placement courses. We offer college advanced courses partnered with Clinton Community College. So there's a lot of opportunity. With a lot of opportunity there becomes a lot of different pathways, and you have 547 students to funnel in different pathways and make it all work with 60 teachers.
Yeah.
So that's what our summer entails for the most part. We plan freshman orientation, first days of school. There might be some leadership conferences sprinkled in there. But that's what the summer looks like.
Yeah. Wow. Listen, I want to close out this morning. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our thoughts and our prayers going out to this young lady in Chazy who, a student, high school student, lost her life right in your neck of the woods, right down the road from you guys. How her school and her fellow students are coping with this and how that's going to affect their summer and the coming school year. I can't imagine. Not just the students, the staff, the whole community. I'm not sure if they've incorporated Sweethearts and Heroes, but what do you say?
They have. And I can't believe I have no words. I have no words other than empathy. And if the Chazy community is listening out there, you got friends at Peru, and if anything you need, we are here. I can't imagine what they're going through, the family, and we have some students well connected to Chazy students. They play on common teams and so on and so forth. In particular, the student that you mentioned, and I have no words. I can't imagine. My thoughts and prayers.
Matt, thanks so much for coming on with us this morning, for saying everything that you've said and living everything that you've said this morning, every single day of your life, for what you do, what you bring, and for your partnership with Sweethearts and Heroes. You are a fantastic testament to the great impacts that this organization has had just on your school alone.
Those are kind words, JD. I'm a work in progress too, but thank you for the kind words. And anytime I can help you out as well. This is an amazing show. I've been starting to listen to it now that I've been exposed, and I appreciate you having me on. The pleasure's mine.
Thank you so much, Matt. We'll catch you soon, all right?
Thank you.
All right. There he is. Matt Berry, principal, Peru High School. Listen, we have so much that is on our page on what's going on today. Police are looking for people of interest in that attempted robbery at Hannaford's. We have that story up there. We have the heavy police presence and that active situation in Rutland City yesterday. Vermont State Police investigating another deadly drowning, this one in Virgins. These stories are all up on Aired Out. And a man in critical condition after being hit by a car at North Beach. There is some heavy, heavy stuff that is in the news today. Please go about your day, tread lightly, and take good care of one another. Another hot day today. 70, I'm showing about 79 right now. We're going to get up to about 85. Check on your neighbors today. Stay well hydrated if you can. Of course, I'm talking about water. Throw a little lemon juice in there. Make you feel better. Thanks, Matthew Berry from Peru High School, principal, this morning, joining us live, representing Sweethearts and Heroes, which is where we go every single Wednesday right here on Aired Out. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be turning up the heat, literally, with G back in the saddle. Friday, we close out the week with Rex. Have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday. And thank you so much to our presenting sponsors right there in front of your eyes. Be well, stay cool. Don't forget to check on your neighbors and your friends today. Make sure they're all right. Catch you tomorrow right here on Aired Out. AiredOutVT.com.